Hi, my name is Nick Osborne, aka the Coffee Detective from coffeedetective.com, and today we're going to address a ticklish question, which is how much coffee grounds should you add to a certain amount of water when you're making coffee in a drip brewer. I'm going to address this because in the question and answer area on the site, that is by far the most frequently asked question. And when we get into this, you'll see why that is. It's the coffee maker manufacturers do not make it easy for you to figure that out. So here we have a Black & Decker mid-range drip coffee maker. There's a water reservoir in the back, there's a filter basket in the top, a carafe to collect your coffee, and a heating plate at the bottom to keep it warm. So you buy this, and I'm not beating up on Black & Decker, all the other manufacturers will do the same thing to you. So I take out the little how-to guide and I look through and I want to figure out how much water should I put in here and how much coffee grinds should I put in here to make a nice cup of coffee. Well, when you read through, what it actually says is it says fill up on the back here up to the number of cups you want, and there's a little thing, it's got 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, same as on the carafe here. But when it comes to coffee grinds, it says add coffee grinds to taste. In other words, no use at all. So they give you this little scoop here, which is a little coffee scoop, but again, there's nothing on here that tells you what it is or what the capacity is. Now, in fact, fortunately, I know that is a standard sized coffee scoop and contains 2 level tablespoons of coffee grinds when you fill it to the top level. So at least I know that bit. Now we'll come back to here, the 4, the 6, the 8, the 10, how many cups of coffee. Well, it's confusing because if I take my kitchen measuring jug and I fill it up to 2 cups and I pour it in there, it actually comes up to about 3 3/4 cups. So these don't correspond to what you might think of as being an actual cup. The next question is, and let's assume now that somewhere you found, maybe on the Coffee Detective site or from a neighbor or whatever, you found out that actually what you should do is have 1 coffee scoop per cup of coffee. So on the face of it, looking at this, if you were going to make 8, you'd put 8 of these in, but of course you wouldn't, because these markings don't actually correspond to what a cup is, certainly in the kitchen. And what kind of cup do you want? Do you want a little cup of coffee? Do you want like a regular mug of coffee? Or do you want a serious sized mug of coffee? Because depending on what kind, what the amount of coffee you're going to make is going to depend on how much water you put in here and how many coffee grinds you add. Well, that's a bit greedy. That's not enough. And I think a lot of us, when we get up in the morning, like a cup of coffee. Now, the rule of 1 level coffee scoop of grinds per cup is based on the premise that a cup contains 6 fluid ounces. But it doesn't. That's the one that contains 6 fluid ounces. That's about 8 fluid ounces, and that's a little over 10 fluid ounces. So things can get complicated because if you just try and follow the manual, which is no real help, or follow some abstract instruction, you're going to end up with a brew that's either too weak or too strong. So I'll tell you what I do. 8 fluid ounces, not 6. So instead of doing a level scoop, do a heaped scoop. It gives you just that bit extra that takes you up from the 6 to the 8. So if I'm going to drink my coffee in this, and I think to myself, okay, I'm going to have, I want to have 4 cups of coffee over the next 2 hours, which is probably excessive, but possible, then I want 4 times 8 ounces of water, and I want 4 heaped scoops. What I'm suggesting is that you ignore these markings altogether. And you can't go by these markings either, unless you go on the side here. I mean, in fact, if you're using this, that is in fact 1 cup here is 8 fluid ounces. So that's actually a pretty good match. If that's the case, what I'm going to do to fill the water, I'm not going to use the carafe and try and use those measuring bars. I'm going to either fill this up with water 4 times and pour it in, or I'm going to fill this up to the 2 cups level and put it in twice. So I know that I got enough water for 4 cups, 8 fluid ounces each. So let's say I'm going to have 4 cups, I put in 4 times 8 fluid ounces into the reservoir. Then I get my ground coffee. We've got, what have we got here? Community Coffee Ground Dark Roast. Very nice coffee. And I'm going to use those big scoops. So here we are, I've got my filter paper in place, which I'm going to put in there. Your brewer may have a permanent gold tone filter, and that's fine too. And so I just happily put in 1, 2, 3, and in fact doing a heap scoop is much easier. I'm quite generous with it because I quite like a dark brew. So there we go, I put 4 heat coffee scoops in the filter, 4 times that in the water, and now I'm ready to go.